Hey there everybody, Stevie J back with another UFC recap, and this time it's the TUF Nations finale. Let's start with the main event, Michael Bisping versus Tim Kennedy, in a fight that Bisping was favored to win, both in terms of the odds and in terms of the rankings, being he was number 5 and Kennedy was number 8, but as Florian accurately said during the fight on commentary, Kennedy was, quote, a wet blanket. He got a hold of Bisping every chance he could, kept him on the ground, didn't allow Bisping to do anything. The one really good round Bisping had was the second, when he was able to avoid the takedowns and keep it standing strikes, and Kennedy was trying to bait him into coming all the way to the fence so that Kennedy could drop levels and get a takedown when Bisping charged forward. But in that round, Bisping just tagged him over and over again and didn't get taken down. Now, the rest of the time, Kennedy had a distinct advantage in the wrestling department. So the only real break Bisping got was in the 5th, when it got stood up by Yves Levine at about 2:45, because he just had enough of Kennedy laying on him on the ground. And that was really the most inactive Kennedy was during the whole fight, so that was actually a fair stand-up. So Kennedy gets the decision, 49-46 times 2, and 50-45. Now, to be fair, Patrick Cote had a similar strategy in his fight with Kyle Noke, but he was much more active on the ground when he got the takedowns. He would really jack up Noke with elbows and rights and just lay an unmerciful beating on his head. So Cote looked more impressive with his takedowns and what he did after them. So a good fight for Cote, who picks up the decision and gets the unanimous victory on behalf of the Canadian team. All Canadian finals, and the coach wins in the Canadian versus Australian battle as well. And for those keeping track at home, the scores were 29-28 times 2 and 30-27. We move on to the middleweight finale, which was third from the top tonight, and that was Elias Theodorou beating Sheldon Westcott at 4:41 of the second round by TKO. What happened here was that Westcott was trying so hard to get a submission or a finish in the first round that his whole gas tank went out. He was just completely spent. He wrestled himself into the ground. He was huffing and puffing in the second round, and Sheldon Westcott had nothing left. Elias Theodorou just lit him up, took him down, beat him up, started pounding on him so hard that the referee finally came in and saved him. It took a little while. He took a little bit of a beating, but Elias Theodorou finished the job and got the 6-figure contract and the trophy. I think he wanted a motorcycle too. He seemed to be asking Dana White for keys to a motorcycle, but they don't give a Harley for this one, so I think he was a little bit bummed. Olivier Aubin-Mercier was the favorite going into the welterweight final against Chad Laprise, but it didn't turn out that way on the scorecards. Laprise picked up a split decision. The scores were 29-28, 28-29, and 30-27 for Laprise, which should tell you that the judging was just all over the map for this one. I don't even know what to make of that. I would give Laprise 2 out of 3 rounds myself, but I'm not a judge. At featherweight, Dustin the Diamond Poirier nearly got caught by Akira Corsani, who threw a really good shot and had him wobbled in the first round, but Poirier was able to take it down, go for a Peruvian necktie, and Corsani got out of it, but he got jacked up a little bit and was looking like Poirier was coming on strong in the second round, and then he just hit him so hard that was it. It was over. It was one of those uppercuts where you feel like you could see someone lift out of their shoes and socks. He just went reeling straight backwards, done. So, Corsani probably has a broken nose, which he just had surgically repaired. I think he even told Poirier that it was broken again, so hell of a finish for Poirier, who now owns the most featherweight wins in UFC history. The main event of the prelims on Fox Sports 1 are actually a little similar to that, though it didn't take the second round. It only took one, because the Hands of Stone from Sam Stout got cracked by KJ Noons. The official time was 30 seconds for the right hand that finished it, although he did get a couple more additional shots on the ground. And I guess I don't blame him for that because the referee was rushing in to stop it. So, no fault of his, but probably not necessary shots. I think he was already out from the right hand to begin with. In fact, he was so out, he tried to headlock the referee and submit him. So, yeah. Sam Stout was done. Impressive knockout finish for KJ Noons. Sarah Kaufman got a 30-27 unanimous decision over Leslie Smith, and to be fair to Smith, she did take this fight on short notice. But to be equally fair to Kaufman, her striking technique was superior. She was throwing very precise, very accurate headshots, and Leslie Smith was trying to use her height and reach to throw these looping wild shots. And that's paid off for Leslie in some of her other fights. In fact, she might have actually won the last Sarah Kaufman fight because of it, but didn't get scored that way. This time it didn't work for her, and it was definitely scored the right way. Sarah Kaufman, don't know if she won the first one, but she definitely won the rematch. Ryan the Big Deal Jimmo only needed 4:27 of the first round to knock out his opponent Sean O'Connell with a big right hand. The bad part is he started doing the robot and they cut to commercial. Come on! Show us this celebration. That's the most fun part of any Ryan Jimmo knockout. Well, he did try to entertain the crowd when they came back from commercial. He said he wanted to thank all the Jimmo maniacs out there, and he hoped they were drinking their protein shakes and reading their science books. Well, not exactly a great Hulk Hogan promo, but he tried. I give him credit. George Roop took a unanimous decision over Dustin Kimura, and I still say George Roop should be fighting at middleweight, welterweight, light heavyweight. He is way too big to be a bantamweight. But you know what? It works for him. His sheer physical presence makes him a problem for anybody else in that weight class. 29-28 De La Torre, 30-27 Bocek, and 29-28 Bocek should tell you how that fight went. Mark Bocek was tougher and more resilient because he has UFC experience, and De La Torre was a newcomer to the octagon. But De La Torre really has a great right hand and can take a shot as well, so I like the kid. I think he could, he's just on the verge. He's a little bit away from being a quality UFC fighter. What he learned from this loss will make him a competitor in the future, so bring him back for some more fights because I like what I see of this kid. Nordine Talib more or less cruised to a decision over Vic Grujic 30-27 times 3. Vic Grujic has a great story. He beat thyroid cancer. He's all heart. You gotta love the guy, but just because you have a great story doesn't mean you always have a great fight. And Vic Grujic was just outclassed in every aspect of this fight. He was not on Nordine Talib's level. Filthy Rich Walsh and the savage Chris Indich had a much closer fight, but in the end, the superior striking of Rich Walsh was what made the difference in this preliminary contest. He picked up a 30-27 across the board, as did Mitch Gagnon fighting Timmy Gorman. And Gorman, he was in there. It wasn't a blowout. It wasn't one-sided. In fact, there was one round I thought potentially could have gone to Gorman because he was in there really rocking him with some shots. But in the end, the judges saw all 3 rounds for Gagnon across the board. And that's your UFC recap. I'm Stevie J.